Howdy folks, welcome back to Doing Brew. In our last video, we completed a large craftsman style surround that really dressed out the opening above and around our peninsula countertop. Really turned out great. In today's video, we're going to cover installing the pendant lights. Not difficult to do, just 2 wires plus a ground. Each one takes about 15 minutes to install. Also be dropping in the new dishwasher. Whether it's a full kitchen remodel or just a new dishwasher, easy to do, save yourself a couple $100 on an install charge. But first off, we'll be installing all of the doorknobs and drawer pulls. And here's a quick trick to making sure that all of your drawer pulls are installed in exactly the same location. Cut yourself out a template, determine where your holes need to be, and use that over and over again on all of your drawers. And that makes sure that they're all perfectly aligned and centered on one another, and you don't have to do any measuring whatsoever. Easy to do. Makes for a quick work of what would ordinarily be a slow and tedious process. As you can see, we used a large template for the drawers because we have to measure for 2 knobs. For the cabinet doors, we have a smaller template, and we're just simply going to measure out where we want the doorknob to be on one door. We'll create that template showing the bottom and the side measurements, and then we'll use the drill to just mark the hole, take the template away, finish that hole, and install the knob. This, of course, ensures the knob is in exactly the same position on every door. Next up, let's install those pendant lights. Now, of course, the first thing you want to do is make sure that the power is off to this circuit at the circuit breaker panel. Turn that circuit breaker off. And this is the entire pendant light kit. You've got the top plate with a wire and the light socket at the end with a globe. These pendant lights are from Restoration Hardware, but they're going to be identical to any pendant light kit you get from any source, whether it be online or from your local hardware store such as a Home Depot or Lowe's. First thing you need to do is determine how far down you want your pendant lights to hang. Now, with a 6-inch globe, we wanted these pendants to extend down a little less than 12 inches from our Craftsman style surround, which will place them about 3.5 feet above this peninsula countertop. So once you determine your length, make sure you're measured out equally for all of your pendants. There's a tension screw in the base that you just want to tighten down slightly to ensure that your cord doesn't slip through. Then you're going to cut off the excess cord, leaving yourself about 5 to 6 inches to work with, and then very, very lightly, I can't stress that enough, score around the outer casing or cover of your pendant light cord. Remove that outer cover, exposing the wires that we'll use to complete this connection. It's 3 wires, 1 white or neutral, a black or hot wire, and this wire here, the green wire, which is your ground. You want to trim those wires off to a workable length and then strip about 3/4 of an inch to an inch of the insulation off the end of each wire. With that complete, you want to twist the individual strands of the wires together between your fingers. Get them tightly grouped together. Now it's time to make the connections. Of course, I've secured power at the circuit breaker panel and verified that there is no power going to these wires. I'm connecting the green or ground wire, the hot wire, and then the white wire, but it makes no difference what order you connect these wires in. You just want to ensure that you've established a solid connection by twisting the ends together and securing that connection with the orange wire nuts. And then I like to wrap electrical tape around those wire nuts to ensure that those connections never come apart. Next up, we'll reinstall the base plate up against our Craftsman style surround, attached to 2 posts that extend from the included pendant light bracket and secured by 2 decorative threaded knobs to ensure that it stays in place. Next up, we'll install the globe. And finally, we'll install an LED Edison light which really finishes off the pendant nicely. These antique reproduction Edison lights really provide a nice warm glow to the kitchen. Not covered in this video series is the 5-light matching chandelier that we installed in the dining room, also with the Edison lights. Really ties the two rooms together nicely. Okay, we've got one significant project to complete, and this kitchen remodel is done. And that's the installation of the new dishwasher. But just a reminder, the old farmhouse project is right around the corner. We're tackling 3 projects right off the bat, one of which is the complete rebuild of the side porch. Also, we're going to tackle renovation of the game room first. Got to have a place to relax after a hard day's work. And that's going to include sanding, priming, and painting all of the extensive woodwork in this beautiful old room. What you see here is the very beginning of the restoration work up to 1 coat of primer. Still a lot of work to do. Also, we're well underway in completing a mudroom with an attached powder room in what is the old butler's pantry. Pretty neat digging down to the original floors and the original walls in this old space, and we've uncovered some pretty neat old building techniques along the way. As an example, between 2 brick walls, there's a wooden partition that forms the doorway between the butler's pantry and the dining room. Now, this was clearly built on site 200 years ago. You didn't have a Lowe's or Home Depot to go to. This wall, which is formed by solid wood planks about 1.25 inches thick, is solid as a rock. I couldn't believe that it was built out of just individual solid wood planks. And you can see that it's put together with tongue and groove construction, where clearly these were cut on site for exactly what was needed. This board has 2 grooves, and the adjacent board has a tongue on both sides. You don't find that nowadays. Everything's milled with a tongue on one side and a groove on the other. You just don't find these built on site materials anymore these days, and I just think that's really cool. This incredibly solid old house has been really well maintained over the years. Yeah, she's shown a little wear due to the ravages of weather over the past quarter century, but we're going to very carefully take her apart, clean her up, put her back together again, hopefully just as good as new. So, I hope you'll subscribe and join us as we begin the journey to fully restore this beautiful 1820s brick farmhouse. But before we get to that project, we've got to finish our kitchen remodel. And the last thing we have to do is hook up the dishwasher. After a little bit of cleanup, we'll unbox the dishwasher, lay it down on its back so we can begin hooking up the water inlet and discharge lines. I'll start off by wrapping a couple wraps of Teflon tape around the water inlet, and that's just prior to hooking up the dishwasher connector. It's a copper fitting available at any hardware store, and I'm just going to thread that on with my fingers and get it finger tight, and then I'm going to break out my pliers and I'm just going to give it about a 1/4 turn. As with any metal to plastic connection, you've got to be super careful here not to over tighten. So you just want to get it nice and snug and secure, and that's it. It is pretty easy to over tighten this, crack that plastic connector, and then you're ordering parts and waiting for them to arrive. Next up, we're going to wrap some Teflon tape around our dishwasher connector. This is the point where the stainless steel, that braided line, stainless steel line that supplies water to your dishwasher, connects to most likely under the sink. Now notice that I'm wrapping the Teflon tape in a clockwise direction. That way when I thread the line onto the connector, I'm not going against the tape. Everything is going in the same direction. Now this is metal to metal, so you can put a little more oomph into tightening that down to ensure it's watertight. And since the electrical box is on the same side as the water inlet, I'm going to go ahead and make that connection. As with every other electrical connection, there is a load line, a neutral line, and a ground line. And as you can see, these are very clearly annotated on the terminals within the electrical box. Making the connections is really simple. You just insert your wire into the terminal and tighten it down. Now this is a 2-wire appliance cord that I'm installing here. But as you can see, there's 3 wires. There's a load or hot wire, a neutral wire, and then a ground wire. The ground wire is almost always in the middle of the cord. And as you can see here, I stripped it back just to make sure to expose that green insulation. And once you've got your connections complete, put the electrical box cover plate back in place and secure the screw. With those 2 first steps complete, now it's time to move our dishwasher a little closer to its permanent location so we can hook up the wastewater discharge line. And this step is not a difficult process either. You just attach the tension clamp, route it through the base of your dishwasher. I have to move that clamp back just a little bit. Put the discharge line onto the connection for the dishwasher. Rotate that tension clamp back into place. Okay, with those 3 connections complete, that's the electrical connection, the water supply line, and the water discharge line, it's time to connect those services to the house. We're going to plug in the dishwasher with a simple plug. The discharge line goes in, and here is the water supply line going in. And of course, these connect under the sink. And as I ease the dishwasher into its final location, Alex is pulling the slack out of the discharge and supply lines. And for the supply line and the discharge line, we'll kind of follow the same process we did to hook it up to the dishwasher. Here I'm hooking up the supply line to the hot water side of the water supply under the sink. First applying the Teflon tape and then putting my water supply line onto the hot water valve. And you get this connection finger tight and then a good 1.5 turns, maybe 2 turns with your pliers. Not much more than that is needed. You don't want to over tighten. And we'll turn that valve on, give it a good leak check. Next up, we're going to connect the water discharge line. Now this is kind of a slick little fitting here in that it's universal to fit a number of different size pipes. My discharge pipe is the larger of the pipe selection, so I don't have to cut this down at all. But if you have to trim it down, you just trim it around the rings that you see there, and it sizes to the pipe you need. Once you get it into place, move the clamp into position, tighten it with a screwdriver. Next, we'll secure the discharge line to the inside of the sink base cabinet, just to ensure that it doesn't flop around or get tangled up with anything over the years. And with that, we're nearly complete. All we have to do is install the toe kick cover plate here at the base of the dishwasher. Very simply done with 2 screws. And Alex has the honors of installing the AC register in the kitchen, the very last task of this kitchen remodel. And with that, we are done with this kitchen remodel. From start to finish, it has taken us about 2.5 months to get the entire project done. That's working mostly in the evenings and on weekends. If you just look at the finished project, it can be a little daunting. But hopefully, the way we've broken down this remodel series in the 14 videos, you can see that if you break the project down into its individual pieces and parts, and one thing builds on another, it's really not that difficult to do. Sure, you're going to need to purchase some good tools to get this job done. And no doubt, you're going to have to do some research to complete many of the tasks required to complete a kitchen remodel. But it's certainly doable. And by doing it yourself, you'll have an amazing amount of self-satisfaction to be able to sit back and see a beautiful project that you've completed yourself, and you will save tens of thousands of dollars of what you would have paid a contractor to complete this remodel for you. Now, this remodel had some pretty significant challenges in the beginning with the reconstruction of the floor joists and the subfloor. Most likely, you're not going to have to deal with that level of reconstruction. But as you can see, we took a tired, old, very small kitchen and without actually increasing the size of the kitchen, opened it up quite a bit, installed a tremendous amount of storage space, and by opening up one non-load bearing wall, significantly increased the counter space and the overall usability and functionality of this kitchen. Thank you for sticking with me throughout this kitchen remodel series. I hope you'll subscribe to Do and Brew so you'll continue the journey with us to the old farmhouse project and everything that entails, from bees to chicken to sheep to harvesting the wool off of sheep, and shoot, I might even throw in a beer review or two, plus a whole lot of home renovation. As always, thanks a lot for watching this episode of Do and Brew. If you have any questions about the kitchen remodel or any other home improvement project you're undertaking, leave them in the comments or send me an email to doandbrew@gmail.com. See you back here next time on Do and Brew. Take care, folks.